Welcome to Beyond the Backlog. I'm Nick.
And I'm Zack.
And let's talk games. Let's talk June 2024. Let's talk about games we beat, games that came out, are coming out. Why don't we start with the Nintendo Direct that came out a couple weeks back?
And yeah, so it was I think obviously there's a lot of companies that released trailers and stuff for their systems. Like if you're an Xbox fan, new Gears, I'm sure that's exciting. I think for both of us, our specific interest this generation lies with Switch. So I think we had the most talk about coming out of the June 18th Nintendo Direct. So we'll kind of just recap it in order of the main things that we took away from it. And it opened with a new Mario and Luigi game.
Yeah, so I've never really played many of the Mario and Luigi games. I like Paper Mario as like an RPG kind of thing, but never went into this one. But I really liked the animation, especially.
Yeah, it was a very distinctive art style. It was fun seeing a lot of YouTubers react by being like, oh my god, Mario and Luigi, Mario and Luigi. Mm-hmm. And I was definitely, like, I've played Bowser's Inside Story and Beyond. So there was like two more on the 3DS as well. And even I, as somebody who's played most of them, was kind of like, I think this is Mario and Luigi as I was watching it, but seeing so many people like immediately resonate with that art style definitely got me excited for it.
Yeah, I see it as more excited for other people that have been looking forward to something like this. Mm-hmm. We kind of have our own, I'm sure, coming up later on.
Yeah, and that's where I'm like, it seems like they're getting away from those gimmicks of like, you're controlling a third character or party, like outside of the Mario and Luigi, like in Bowser's Inside Story, you were also playing as Bowser. Yeah. And going around the overworld, like on the top screen, while on the bottom screen, you were like inside Bowser, like hitting his nerves and whatnot. And like Paper Jam, they introduced Paper Mario. So now it's a three-person team setup. And then like Dream Team had like an entirely different gameplay inside of Luigi's Dreams. And I feel like they're just kind of ditching this. Let's just getting back to the no nonsense. Here's a story. Here's an RPG and it looks awesome. Next thing I think they showed was Nintendo World Championship. Wasn't announced in the Direct, but they went into a lot more detail. And I think it looks very similar to what were those two games?
NES Remix.
Yeah. And hearing how it's so similar makes me a lot more interested than I was before.
Yeah, those NES Remix games are really fun. The one critique I had was just having a cost associated with it. I felt that it should have been a part of the like Nintendo Online.
Yeah.
As like one of the higher tier ones, like the expansion pack ones, so you're still paying a little bit more monthly for it.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. Yes, it would have made sense there.
Yeah, because then you could make it like a Super Mario 35 or Tetris 99 or F-Zero 99, where you're competing against a bunch of other people. Whereas I don't want to say I think this is going to be kind of dead on arrival, but
yeah, it's hard to imagine like 2,100 people like still playing the game at a time a few months from now. You know?
Yeah. Whereas at least if you have it quote unquote free, or you just get the online for it, it just makes it a little bit better. Then they came out with another Switch Sports.
It's basketball being added to Switch Sports, which is strange because it's 2 years after the game came out.
Yeah.
And it sold like 15 million copies. Like it's doing fantastic. And I don't think anyone anticipated more updates to it. There was definitely a lot of disappointed fans that wanted more sports after Wii Sports Resort had 12. And this one went back to 6.
Yeah.
And so it's just weird seeing basketball, which is a returning sport from Sports Resort, being added to this game that just seemed like it was not getting any more updates. And for that reason is why I wanted to mention it, is the fact that it has been 2 years. And it's not as egregious as adding like DLC to Mario Kart 8 like 7 years after that game came out.
Yeah.
But it feels like a weirdly long gap. And I think they're done with Switch Sports. I don't think they're going to keep updating it, but it was just weird.
Yeah. And then after that, they did a couple of HD remake type of things.
Those 2D HDs.
Yeah. So the one that I wanted to kind of point out was Dragon Quest. They redid the first trilogy, which is really cool. So they prefaced it by having Dragon Quest 3,
which we already knew about,
and then 1 and 2, which I'm not really familiar with the Dragon Quest timeline, but I believe 3 serves as a prequel to 1 and 2, and that's why they kind of showed it the way that they did. But I think this is a really good way to utilize HD remakes, right? You have games like really old games that are still good that you just want to give a little bit more polish to and then resend them out.
Well, especially doing it in that HD 2D style where it's like, it's so clearly a step above the technology they had in like the 90s at the time. But is still feels like a very much like 2D sprite-based pixel art game.
Yeah, and as something that they really highlighted RPGs in this one, a bunch of remakes and like re-releases of them, which is kind of cool.
And then some new stuff too that looked kind of cool. But another HD re-release that I had some thoughts about was Luigi's Mansion 2.
Yeah, let's get into it.
Or Dark Moon, as it was originally released as in North America. And I feel like this is such a weird release to have because like it didn't make full use of the 3DS features when it came out, but it felt like its design was very like on the go, play it for 20, 30 minutes, do one mission. And so I guess it makes sense on like a somewhat handheld console. It just doesn't feel like they're adding anything to the game to warrant me, who has beaten the original on the 3DS like 3 or 4 times. Love that game. I just don't know if I want to spend full money on playing that same game again with just a visual upgrade and nothing else.
I think the main issue as well for me is that 3DS isn't Wii U, right? 3DS did much better from a sales perspective than Wii U did. So I could see Nintendo wanting to redo some of the good games on Wii U, get them to Switch so that more people can experience them and they can make more money that way. But for 3DS, which was the handheld console before the Switch, it just seems like it doesn't quite hit at the same point.
Yeah, I just don't think there's a group of people that have a Switch, have been jonesing for more Luigi's Mansion, and are the prime audience for this because they never played it before. I feel like if you have a Switch and you're excited for Luigi's Mansion, it's because you've probably played them all.
Yeah, exactly.
But then we got onto something actually brand new that we had no idea about prior, and that is a new Super Mario Party game.
Now, what are the initial thoughts? Do you think it's kind of getting back to how most people want the Mario Party games to go? Or
I mean, the trailer and like the narration over it almost sounded like it was specifically addressing, here's the complaints we've heard about Mario Party in the last 10 years, and here's how we're solving them.
Yeah.
And the fact that they're even like, I know a lot of people said having 4 boards in Super Mario Party and only 5 returning in Mario Party Superstars was abysmal. And I feel like the fact that right away they're like, here's 5 brand new boards. Each one has slightly different mechanics and different things going on. It's not just basic ass boards like we've seen before. And the second point was that there was more mini games than there's ever been before. So many more playable characters, it appears, than there's ever been before. And they have 2 returning boards as well. So it's like, right off the gate, they're announcing there's 7 boards for it, which is the most we've had in a Mario Party, I think.
Yes.
So all that combined sounds like the best Mario Party has been, but I still want to play it first to see if it feels good.
Yeah, I want to see how it goes, but I've always been looking for more couch co-op games or party games if I'm hosting something with friends. So being able to break out like a genuine Mario Party on the Switch as opposed to breaking out GameCube or N64, going to be a big difference. Then we get to, I think, my highlight of the Nintendo Direct. I'm sure it's yours as well.
Boy.
The Legend of Zelda Echoes of Wisdom.
Man, as soon as I realized that it was a Zelda fronted game, I was literally like clinging onto my seat, like gripping, just like, no way.
Yeah.
Like they actually did that. but I genuinely don't feel like I have a lot that I can say quickly. It's either I'm going to get into like an hour-long discussion about it, or I'm just going to wait until it's out and I can play it, because it's not that long.
Yeah, I'm
September.
surprised. I'm surprised it kept under wraps as well as it did.
Mm-hmm. Like it's less than 3 months away.
Yeah. Now, were you part of the group of people I was seeing reactions that thought it was just a remake of A Link to the Past?
No. I immediately I was like, wait a second. Like I recognize this art style, and seeing the fight against Ganon, I was very confused what we were watching.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, this feels new. Like, I don't think I've seen this. Because if it's a callback to like a fight in a Zelda game, I don't know which one they're remaking just from this so far.
So why I think people thought it was Link to the Past is it kind of harkens back to the final boss fight.
A little bit.
Right? Like a little bit, right? But I think people just saw that type of Ganon and was like, that's what it is. It's like, no, that's not it. But I think it's going to be good. It's a Zelda game. Most Zelda games are good.
Well, I think they're borrowing that kind of open world, choose your materials on the fly from Breath of the Wild, Tears of the Kingdom, and combining it with that sort of just roam around this much more succinct sized world, like isometric, one camera angle view. And I feel like mixing these two ideas, these two directions that Zelda's been going in, is either going to be one of the best games we play this year, or is going to be remembered as the time they tried something different with Zelda and it was appreciated for that, but wasn't people's favorite.
Yeah, like a Skyward Sword type of thing.
I'm just curious if it's going to have like 8 dungeons and like dungeon items and stuff like that.
Yeah,
as
if they get back to that, because it's been a while since you've had a brand new top-down Zelda.
Yeah, like there's a lot they could do with it. And speaking of games that there's a lot they could do with it, the last one we wanted to mention was Metroid Prime 4, obviously. I have only played Prime 1, but I wanted to play a bunch of Metroid games. I was going to say this year, but with how busy I've been, I might say by the time Prime 4 releases, I want to be completely caught up on Metroid.
Yeah.
I feel like that's a fair enough plan to make. How do you feel? Are you going to get Metroid Prime 4?
I could see myself getting Metroid Prime 4. It might be like Mario Wonder, where I picked it up months after the fact and won't play it for a little while, but it's definitely something that piques my interest just to see. And like, it's a Metroid game. I like the 2D Metroid games. I've never really gotten into the 3D ones, so we'll see if this is the one that gets me to do it. It fit that hype final build, though.
Yeah, like it was a good final trailer to end on.
Yeah.
And getting like that subtitle Beyond. So now we know it's like Prime 2 was Echoes, Prime 3 Corruption, Prime 4 Beyond. Like it's just, I'm curious what they're going to do with it. And again, as I said, I haven't played Prime 2 or 3, so I don't know how much the subtitle actually plays into like an important like, story beat. But with that final little bit they showed of this kind of lush open environment and just this very like ambient like animal noises, I'm curious how much of the planet is going to be like that.
Yeah. Now I have a final question before we go on to a couple other hits that come out this month specifically. Do you think that's the last big direct that they have before the new console?
Hard to say if it'll be the last one. I think it's nothing is going to be bigger than it.
Yeah.
There might be like how when we were getting into the start of Switch, they had like a 30-minute just 3DS games only direct. And it was definitely like a C tier level direct where they didn't have any huge exclusive titles coming to it, but had enough coming out, like a new Yokai Watch and stuff, that they wanted to just do a little 30-minute recap of those games. So I think, if anything, that might be it. Depends on if it's like a Switch 2 that's going to be backwards compatible or like cross-generation or not.
I'm sure that'll be a topic for a future video. We've got what they do with it, but
absolutely. All right. So before we drag things on too long, what have you played in June, or well, like what did you pick up in June or came out in June that you're interested in?
I think the main one, I don't know if I got anything other than the Elden Ring DLC. Because that one was my big, like, I knew I was getting it day one. I'm someone who didn't care about the price point, right? For those that don't know, the Elden Ring DLC, they just did one DLC that's supposed to be very big. It was retailed 55 Canadian, so probably, $40 American, give or take.
Yeah.
And what was weird was people didn't really care, because FromSoft has their ducks in a row.
Yeah, it's one of those developers they actually trust is going to have a full product.
Exactly. And until they pull a CD Projekt Red, then they'll keep at it.
Mm-hmm.
But from what I've played of it, it's hard. It's difficult.
I'm shocked.
Yeah, right. I haven't played Elden Ring in like a year and a half. So trying to get right back into it and having the DLC be more end game content is going to take a lot of dying to get used to.
Fair enough.
But that's really my main one. It'll keep me going for probably the next month or so.
Now, I did go out and have a little shopping spree, and at the used game store, I picked up a couple of Guitar Hero Rock Band games because I was interested after we did our episode about Rock Band and Guitar Hero and how that influenced us, and I kind of wanted to catch up on the games I missed. And then I picked up a couple little Wii shovelware games. Not even shovelware, like Monkey Ball Banana Blitz, Mario and Sonic at like the Winter Olympics, Big Brain Academy, kind of like mini game compilation.
Yeah, the fun little, hey, we'll have a night and play a couple of these.
Mm-hmm. And that's kind of, I have a project in mind specifically for those. And then just a few games on Steam that were like $2-3 at the time, just while I was browsing through. But in terms of what actually came out this month, I definitely want to pick up Super Monkey Ball Banana Rumble, just because I do love me some Monkey Ball. It's been a while since I've been excited for a Monkey Ball, and this one actually looks kind of fun. And then, as we mentioned, Luigi's Mansion 2 HD that actually came out the day we're recording this. And I don't think I'm going to pick it up, even as a Luigi's Mansion super fan. I just feel like if I want to play 2, I'm going to go play it on 3DS.
As a note, too, this is also the day that the Steam Summer Sale has started.
Oh, okay. So maybe in July's recap, we're going to have even more Steam fodder to sort through.
Yes, because I have yet to go through that and try to decide. I generally limit myself to an amount and then just see what fits in on that. I'm hoping to see if I can pick up maybe an Assassin's Creed. I've kind of been jonesing for a newer one of those. So.
Like one of the 3 or 4 games that kind of go more open worlds.
Yeah, just for something a little different. Mm-hmm. I'll probably still try to play the Ezio ones, but it'll be good. But for this month in general, in terms of what we beat, it's kind of small.
Yeah. I mean, I've been really busy. I've been doing like full-time internship and near full-time work on top of that. So I only have 2 things I wanted to mention.
And I had time coming up in July, so I've been working extra, switching shifts with people to get some of that time off. So,
all right. Well, I'll jump into my first one I wanted to talk about, and that's my RPG that I beat this month. And I went for a little of a shorter RPG, and that is West of Loathing. So I don't know if you have ever heard of this text-based browser game. It might even still be around, called Kingdom of Loathing.
Nope.
So it's just, as I said, like it's a text-based RPG where you say I'm going north, east, southwest. I'm like attacking.
Okay.
And doing this, and like every time it refreshes the page and like the outcome,
like a Zork type of thing.
Yeah. So it's very much like a back to basic like 80s style RPG, but it's done with this the stick figures. That's it. It's like a stick figure art style, and it's all black and white. And in this game in particular, you pick one of 3 classes. Literally, do you want to be like ranged, mage, or melee? Except they have funny names, like, do you want to be a cow puncher? Do you want to be like a bean, like, sorcerer? And you just pick one of those three and you set off into the wild, wild west, or go west of Loathing. And I think kind of focusing the setting in on being the Wild West really helps this sort of bizarre RPG kind of tie together. Because imagine like Earthbound, how there's like these alien creatures dropping in from space, but it's so it's that kind of, you never know what sort of monster you're gonna go up against. And they're gonna have some long, silly description is like the name of the monster. But I feel like just kind of narrowing it down to we're in the Wild West and everything kind of is based on that theme kind of works. But all of the text in this game is totally worth reading. Like, there's conversations you can have with like this cactus man hybrid who is turned into a cactus because he drank too much cactus beer. And it's just like those kinds of things where you just never know what sort of funny scenario you might read just by reading through the dialogue. So it's more of a just read along, and it's not going to be that long of a game because it is so text heavy. But that focus on beers and alcohol is a returning point I remember from Kingdom of Loathing. Like, you had three main stats there, like moxie, your mysticality, and your like muscle. And like each is associated with like a different combat style pretty much. And so it's like different beers have different effects, different foods have different effects, and like different charms. It's like you can use a maximum of 2 beers, 2 food, and 2 charms like each day to get boosts. And every time you sleep, it resets. But beyond that, like, you have a little partner that comes with you, and anytime you just don't know what to do or what quests you've been assigned, you can go talk to your partner, and they'll literally be like, you should go back to Dirtwater and like bring the chef the like saltpeter that you said you would, or that guy that got like run over and has a broken leg, you need to go up to this place to find the broken leg pills.
Now, is it all text-based, or do you see an image of your character moving around?
So in this game in particular, like, you do walk around as your like stick figure, but every place you visit is only like a single screen plus maybe a little bit of scrolling.
Okay.
And you pretty much just like select where you want to go by horse in between, and it pretty much just will take you through a little dialogue box on the way, get to your destination. Maybe you find a new place along the way, maybe you have to return back where you were, and it's very simple, straightforward. You just kind of keep plucking through.
Yeah.
Like, the fights in them are really simple too, especially if you take your time and explore and like complete the side quests and get all the experience. The actual main obstacles of the story are going to be a breeze. Then as you go, there's plenty of other skills you can acquire along the way. Like, I don't have lock picking as a skill.
Okay.
So as I'm going through, I'm encountering all these checks where it's like, you need lock picking level 1, level 2, level 3, level 4. I can't do those. But on the flip side, because of the way I've built my character, I can outfox certain enemies. So I can run into an encounter, and rather than even have to fight, my outfoxing level is high enough. I can literally just negotiate with them and have them surrender.
Okay.
So there's like genuine different ways that the game will unfold based on like how your character is built and like different skills you have unlocked. But I haven't quite finished the game. It's just a lot of fun, especially if you like those text-based RPGs. And if you're like me and you just have that little itch in your brain for more Kingdom of Loathing, because I was probably 12 when I was playing this, and just want to relive that nostalgic era of like internet, then definitely check it out.
Yeah. Now, speaking of that nostalgia bit, my first game I beat was Star Wars Jedi Academy. Now, I didn't really grow up having a PC that was made for gaming. We just had one that just did all our, I don't know, bills, maybe a little bit of web surfing even. But it came out in 2003 by Raven Studio, which the only other notable thing that I know of, like, they did Singularity, if you've ever heard of that.
Yeah.
They did the 2009 Wolfenstein, which is like a weird in between like the New Order and Beyond for that trilogy. And like, yeah, it's a weird kind of game. But I have a nostalgia for the graphics of like that early 2000s PC games, or like your later Quakes, your Half-Lifes, Vampire the Masquerade, things like that. And Jedi Academy is more part hack and slash, parts shooter. But come on, you're playing a Star Wars game. You want to use a lightsaber.
So you want to go the hack and slash route?
Yeah, you go the hack and slash route. It does. I forget if there's other games that do this, but you have packets of missions that you do. Once you complete a certain amount, you have your next big story point that you get to.
I see.
So there's 3 batches of that. There's 5 missions that you can do. After 4 of them, you get your mandatory mission that you have to do. But you can go ahead and beat all 5. And they vary between, you've got to rescue this stolen droid, you've got to outrun these Sith in like one of those little speeder cars. But it's just fun.
Yeah.
It's a classic Star Wars story, right? So you're brought in, you're force sensitive, you're going up to the Jedi Academy being trained by Luke, and you meet a buddy there on your little tram on the way. He's voiced by the guy who is Max from like the Goof Troop movies.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Nice.
James Marsden, I believe. And my favorite is like Tino Tonatini from The Weekenders. Great show.
Just watched a short on YouTube about Max in like Goof Troop, like on the way over here.
Yeah.
Weird.
But it's, you have light force powers and dark force powers, depending on which ones you use, might steer you one way or another. And then at a couple points near the end of the story, you get to pick light side or dark side, and then it kind of changes the ending, which is nice. It's not as all-encompassing as like a Knights of the Old Republic in terms of light side, dark side having endings, but...
I was actually going to ask, because I'm uneducated on these games, and I was going to say, like, was this the same era as Knights of the Old Republic, and what was different about it?
It was the same era. So Knights of the Old Republic is more of a D&D style RPG. So kind of like a Dragon Age is done kind of like that. Whereas this one is more from the in-between. So like Jedi Outcasts, or I can't remember the other one off the top of my head. Dark Forces 2.
No, when you say like a hack and slash, though, is it like a button mashing until an enemy's health bar disappears?
Kind of. But you don't see the health bar.
Okay.
Now, I play most of these on easy just because I want to experience the story, have like some kind of fun gameplay. So it's almost like a bit of a power fantasy where I just walk up to someone, hit them once, and then they die. Except for like the lightsaber battles against the Jedi, that's still difficult even on the easiest difficulty. But at this point, I'd put the game at like a 6 out of 10.
Oh.
It's really fun, but I don't know if it holds up quite as well as some of the other games from that era.
Like, did this come out after Knights of the Old Republic?
That I don't know. I'd have to check that. It's definitely in the same era because Knights of the Old Republic came out for like 4 original Xbox.
I'm just curious, like, are you saying that it's not as groundbreaking because games like that already existed and had already kind of shown what a big epic story in the Star Wars universe could be?
I think so, because this one just fits from like a adventure story versus a role-playing story. Right? Because when you have those kind of stories, they actually came out the same year. That's really funny. They both came out in 2003.
Interesting.
Yeah. But when it's an adventure game that tops out at, I don't know, maybe 12, 15 hours versus an RPG that's going to take you 30, there's more story building. But a lot of people really like this era of Star Wars. I know my cousin growing up played a lot of multiplayer from this time with a bunch of people. But for me, it's one that I'm like, I like this time period, so I wanted to experience it. And now that I have, I'm kind of set and done with it.
Do you have an interest in like picking up any of the newest games? Like, I want to say there was a Jedi game that came out last year.
Jedi Survivor, I think is what that one is. And that one has a couple of issues with the ports.
Okay. But it's not like the same sort of game or anything, is it?
No, Jedi Survivor and Jedi Fallen Order are a little bit more actiony. Some people called it kind of like Dark Souls, and I didn't really understand it.
Okay.
Right, but it's an action adventure game. I guess, yeah, you could kind of say it's like that. But I haven't played Survivor, but Jedi Fallen Order is a great game. So I could see that being like the new age version of those kind of games.
Okay. All right. And moving on to my second spiel here. I feel like this month has been soaked in a lot of early 2000s nostalgia. So let's move it to the mid 2000s, because I was feeling nostalgic for that PS3 and Wii era, especially after we talked about Guitar Hero 3 specifically, and then Rock Band 1, 2, 3. So I went back and actually played through the first Rock Band again for like the first time since Rock Band 2 came out. And 16 years later, about 16 years, I was definitely feeling nostalgic. But Rock Band 1 feels strange to play again. Like, there's so few songs compared to what I'm used to in Rock Band 4 specifically, but
yeah, for notes, when we play Rock Band 4, we have like almost 1,000 songs to choose from.
Yeah, I have about 700 downloaded and purchased on top of the normal set list. So it's like something like 794. But that being said, like, there are some all-time classic bangers on that soundtrack. We already went into good detail about that. Like the fact that Greengrass and High Tides is on there. And that's the only way to play that song on Rock Band. Oh, it's like, and the fact that there's no fail mode and there's no hyperspeed. So I can't play it the way I'm used to playing it on more modern systems. And so I actually had to just like train my fingers again to get good. Now, I'm not gonna lie, I can still pass Greengrass and High Tides and no issues. So it was a pretty simple playthrough.
I always appreciated when like the hardest or second hardest song wasn't just a hard metal song or like a hard rock one, where it's like, nah, here's bluegrass, Greengrass and High Tides.
Yeah, that is probably one of the most unique like final songs in any of those like guitar-based rhythm games.
Yeah, the only other one would be like Bodhisattva from Rock Band 2, I think it is.
Bodhisattva, even then that's
which is still like Steely Dan.
Even then it's I want to say like second last tier, like it's not even like end game, because the final one in that was Painkiller.
Yeah.
So after that, I moved on to Guitar Hero Aerosmith, because that one came out right after Rock Band, like chronologically, but this one I've never played before.
Oh, it's a good one.
Yeah, and it features almost as many songs as the original Rock Band, which is weird because like it is like centered on Aerosmith, but I think Guitar Hero 3 had like 84 songs, and then Rock Band 1 had like 48.
Yeah.
And then Aerosmith had that like was a small game, like it was only like a $30 game. It wasn't like a full price one unless you got the specific Aerosmith guitar with it. But even the dozen like of non-Aerosmith songs that are there, I don't think is the greatest selection. There wasn't a lot of ones that I knew beforehand, especially the hardest songs, which I think objectively are Toys in the Attic and Train Kept A-Rollin'.
Yeah.
Train Kept A-Rollin' was literally just in Rock Band.
Yep.
Like, so I had just played Train Kept A-Rollin', and that wasn't even the hardest song in Rock Band. And then have it being the hardest song in Guitar Hero Aerosmith, I was like, oh, well, that was easy. Like, so it's a kind of a short and easy spin on a Guitar Hero campaign, and some of the songs are placed in a bit of a weird order. So I wrote down a very specific nitpick, and that is that they include a few famous venues that Aerosmith played at, but the songs that you play in the venue in game
aren't what they would have had.
Aren't what they played at the actual venues, which I wouldn't have known except for the fact that they actually have little notes before you start songs saying like, oh, this song was one of the ones they played at New Year's Eve.
That would be so cool from a rhythm game.
Yeah, so it's like like New Year's Eve. I'm not expecting them to have like a full like 15 song set list. Yeah. It's like have them play the 3 songs they did for New Year's Eve for their rock and roll induction, which is the finale. It's like these are not songs they played at the rock and roll induction. And it might make sense if like it went based on popularity towards the end, or it went chronologically throughout their discography, or if it made any sort of sense, but it doesn't. It's just like, it feels like random songs picked for random things.
Yeah.
Which is just like a small detail that feels like a missed opportunity. And beyond that, like, I think the number one that I complained about was Dream On. We all know that song. That is in tier 5 out of 6. And difficulty and like career chronologically wise, that should have been like the finale of tier 1.
Yeah.
Like there was no reason that was like the song that stopped me from getting to like Train Kept a Rolling. Like Dream On is such a simple song. Anyway, again, just little nitpick. So the last one I got into is Guitar Hero World Tour, which is technically 4, is like the full main Guitar Hero after 3. And I think this one has a really good set list. Even if there are some weird repeats, like there's 3 Tool songs, there's 2 Ozzy Osbourne songs, and 2 Jimi Hendrix, which is like, I get they're like legends of rock and roll.
It's the guitar heroes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I guess it's like how Guitar Hero 3 had like the battles against these legendary guitarists, and then you play a song by that artist. But this one is more like, we're going to have you play back-to-back songs by Jimi Hendrix. And I'm like, oh, I just don't really feel like that was a fun way to end like a hard set list. Mm-hmm. Anyway, so the new features in this one is there's like purple ringed notes that you can like slide along that are kind of like how Rock Band has the solo buttons where you don't have to strum. And then they also added in the ability to pluck notes on top of long held notes, which is kind of cool. Beyond that, they added in the drums and vocals to make it like the full Rock Band experience. Other than that, like it was a really fun game, a lot of great songs. I just feel like not all the set lists were chosen very well, which is something I said about Aerosmith as well.
Yeah.
Some of them make a lot of sense together. Like they put like 5 classic rock songs in one playlist, 5 indie rock songs, 5 heavy metal songs together. And then there's others that just feel like randomly stitched together amalgamations of songs they just didn't know what to do with. Like there's a random like 70s punk song, and then like a 2000s indie rock, and then like a classic rock, and then like almost a country song. And you're like, who decided these?
Yeah, they're like, here are all the extras that we didn't know what to do with. So
yeah. So I think a lot of, and the fact that the main story takes you through like all the songs, like it's not like 3 where almost half the set list is like purchasable extra stuff. Like you actually have to play through most of the 80 plus songs on this one, which I thought was kind of nice.
Yeah.
But that's pretty much it. So there was like 3 different Guitar Hero Rock Band games that I played this month. Probably more to come next month.
Oh yeah. Well, they're always just fun ones to do. My final one that I did this month was my 12 and 12. I have never beat an Uncharted game.
Ugh.
I've played through parts of 4 and a little bit of 1 before playing the first one again. Drake's Fortune, 2007 action adventure game. It's Naughty Dog. Most people know who they are. Mm-hmm. I find this game frustrating.
Weird.
So there's a lot I like about it and a lot I don't. I maintain my feelings that the combat's not good.
I think the shooting is not good.
Yeah, so I took that in as the control scheme is really wonky. Mm-hmm. Right? Like even near the end of the game, I was still missing cues for like grenades especially, and like having to zoom in and then shoot or things like that just made it a little bit weird. But they also have weird gameplay issues with it. And I saw it more than anything where I stop and think, where do the bad guys come from? They just appear, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like I'll do all the parkour stuff near the end of the game. You start going underground in some areas and you're having to like go up and around and do all these things. And after like 3 to 4 minutes of that, you get to an area up top and then there's just like 4 dudes. And then you do another like 4 minutes of parkouring all around. And it's like, why are these 4 dudes here?
It definitely feels very predictable after a certain point where you just kind of know any big open courtyard. Oh, we're going to shoot some people.
Yes, it has that late 2000s, like Gears of War has this as well, where you get to an area and you're like, oh, this is where like the big combat's going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
And even in those, you just get weirdly surrounded, right? They don't ambush you from behind. They wait for you to move to the next part of the courtyard and then they come from behind. That's like, I don't know if it's just me nitpicking with some things, but that's something that really takes me out of the game.
I wouldn't say that for me personally, it like detracts from the fun of the game, though. Like it definitely makes me aware, like I am playing a video game,
yeah,
and not like experiencing this. But I don't think it pulls me out of being Nathan Drake.
Yeah, I think that's fair because the platforming sections are like the best part,
mm-hmm.
right? It's just really fun to climb around and parkour and get places.
And even then, I would say that it just gets better as the series goes.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not enough that I'm just going to put it down. I have the trilogy on PS4. I have Thieves End, Uncharted 4. So it gives me enough to do and continue on with the series. As of now, though, I think it ranks behind Assassin's Creed and the Lara Croft games, like the newest trilogy of theirs, for those style of games. Because I'd point out specifically with Tomb Raiders, the Tomb Raider games, the later 2 had self-contained combat areas. So like they don't come back. So you go through the combat and then that's just it. So when you're wandering around collecting everything, you're not kind of going through a swath of enemies.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess it's the difference between it being a little bit more open world versus Uncharted 1 being more self-contained. Other than that, though, like the story's good, the platforming's fun. I would say it's probably one of my favorite Naughty Dog games that I've played.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a conversation for another day because there's a very specific Naughty Dog game that I don't enjoy.
Man, we'll talk about Naughty Dog right after we talk about Rare.
Yeah, exactly. But I would say I'd call it like a 4 out of 10.
Oh, 4 out of 10?
4 out of 10.
Wow, and it's like one of your favorite Naughty Dog games?
Yeah, I really don't like Last of Us.
Oh, whoa, okay, Jesus Christ. Like, okay, so for me personally, like off the top of my head, I would call Uncharted maybe a 7, 7.5. And I would say that like 2, 3, 4 are all almost solid 10 out of 10s. Like
they're kind of what I'm looking forward to because I do know specifically 1 is kind of jank.
Yeah, 1 is kind of jank, and they definitely took the ideas they had in 1 and smoothed it over and just made it a way better game to play.
Yeah.
And a lot more fun. And like some chapters are just like parkouring, and then some chapters are just like shooting fests. And I don't feel like it's trying to keep a steady flow of both going simultaneously.
Yeah.
I feel like it gets much better at storytelling.
I will say the amount that I played of 4, I really did enjoy.
Mm-hmm.
I just hit a combat point when I wasn't as open to the idea of combat in an Uncharted game.
Mm-hmm. So I would say for me, the thing that didn't stick out about 1 the most was the narrative. Felt like something I could have seen on like a National Treasure movie or something.
Yeah, yeah.
Whereas like 2, 3, 4 are all exceptionally better. So yeah. I would agree. It's not that memorable or fantastic of an experience, but definitely give the rest a shot.
Oh yeah. Yeah, they're on the list. I'm not going to remove them from the list just because it's just me just getting real down about Naughty Dog. It's better than I thought it would be.
Yeah, okay. If you end up not liking 2, though, then we're going to have some fighting words.
That's the main one, right? Because that's what a lot of people have as their first one, right?
Mm-hmm. That's probably my favorite still. Yeah. I would need to go back and play it to confirm, but so good.
But that's it. That's all. There's our June games beat. I have no idea what I would play in July. Might depend on what I see on Steam or what time I have.
Hey, I have 3 trains of thought. One is that I'm always working on an RPG. The second is I'm always have Metroid on the back burner. And the third is there's so many other projects that we're working on that I want to just like play games for to get recordings or make notes on. So I'm sure between those, I'm going to have a pretty busy July.
That was the main thing for me, is it was a lot of recordings.
Mm-hmm.
But hopefully that just means it's less recordings in the future. But good day, good night, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks for listening.